just talked about, or rather talked about the mental situation in the country.
Yes.
Things are crazy. As a mediator, what inspires you to do what you do?
Well, life in general inspires me to be a mediator. There's a lot that happens, for you to just take one day at a time. You have to, every day brings its own challenges. Kila siku iko na mashida zake. So the best thing to do is take things as they come, mediate. Mediation basically is a reflection, is a mirror of what happens in our society.
Yeah.
And it many times, you take things for granted. Those two small hiccups, we call them blips.
Blips.
And conflicts.
Yeah.
A blip leads to a conflict.
Yeah.
So at a point where you understand mediation, unaielewa vizuri, then you are able to identify those small things that come as a blip between myself and yourself, and the normal living, yourself and your wife and your children and your colleagues and your workmates. Those very kidogo things that lead to a conflict.
Right.
And eventually, a conflict leads to war.
Vapo sasa imeribika.
Kimenuka. Vibaya sana.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, we keep on thinking those exaggerated things that we look at. And I don't want to mention things like lakini, we know what's happening in our world. We know what's happening in East Africa today. Yeah. They come through the very common, simple things that you might look at and say, kwanza kwa wanaume si usema tu, mimi unajua mimi na story na insecurity hakuna. Mimi na insecurity, taking it to the most basic, your home, your house, your wife, your relationship with siko insecure, but you forget that is that same insecurity that leads to that war that is in the East African community, that is in Israel, if you want to look at Israel.
Yeah.
That whatever is happening right now, you've seen what Trump has said there. Kanuke mbaya. We are doing it. That is what.
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah. So it basically roots from the everyday insecurities that you look and undermine, and you think, no, I'm going strong, I'm doing it, I am okay. And that inspires me to do mediation, because I learn better every day. Nikicheki tu vile what people are going through, then you say, Allah, and it was that simple. Looking from the outside, you think it's very easy, it's very simple.
What's the worst that can happen?
Kweli nini, so move on. It's a business conflict. Move on. But it is not. At that particular time, guys are not quite sane. When you're going through that very difficult challenge, boss, kanat kameluz mahali.
Stephanie.
So for someone who's listening in and I'm not quite sure what mediation is, could you take this through? What is mediation, and then why is it so important in, especially in Kenya today?
Now, mediation is the process of, we are not litigants. Litigants basically means advocates. We are not, we are simply facilitators to help you come up with your own solution to a conflict. Let's say when two parties are in conflict, most of the time you find that those solutions are within themselves. So for us, our job is basically to help you, to nudge you, to help you come up with your own solution that is amicable. Now, ukiangalia, when you talk about litigation basically you sit in front of a third party who makes the decision for you, who is a judge, who decides and says, you guys, even though vile mtaishi, if these children are going, they're your children, not the judge's children. But then that judge decides vile hawa watoto watalelewa, and just because the two of you cannot sit down and move beyond that one small step, that we say, you say, let me be that bigger person, Let me get a win-win solution for my child, for my own blood. You get? So that is what mediation is. Basically, facilitating people to come up with their own solution.
Okay. So, Dr. Alice, you've been in psychology. You are a psychologist.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to picture a scenario where, two people come to you, they have an issue there, that they need your mediation. They need mediation in this matter. But you notice that maybe one of this person is going through some mental challenges, and it's not something that's really just surface level decision making on your part. How do you go about such cases of people who have mental, breakdowns and all?
Okay. Where I work, we work with psychiatrists. So basically what we do assessments. When somebody comes and then you realize it just goes beyond the normal things in life, you may need the services of a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist may give medication. And at the same time, then you continue with therapy, whereby you keep talking to this person. You look at their coping mechanisms. You see how they do things. You try to deal with their anger issues, especially whatever may be there. You try, because you'll be able to talk to the person and you definitely know what are their struggles, what are they dealing with. So even as like maybe somebody has, let's say, a condition like bipolar, and then you realize they need some medications, that we pass on to the psychiatrists.
Okay.
But then they'll get the medication, but they'll come to me for psychotherapy. Whereby we work on daily basis, we'll identify what are the actual issues that this person is going through, and then we look at those issues together and look for better coping mechanisms. That together with the medication, the person will be able to move on with life.
Right.
Yes.
Are there any cases where you just feel like, I don't think this how hatuwezani now? Then you escalate the issue to maybe litigants, as you was mentioning.
Not from that perspective.
Okay.
We don't move from psychotherapy to litigants. Those are very different dimensions.
Right.
Because if anything, you should mediate and make them see sense in living together in a better way. If they decide on litigation, that is now a different line.
Okay.
But if they would ask to be taken through mediation, that is a different thing. And now this is why I'm also training in mediation and also doing mediation in the judiciary, where some cases have already gone to court and they are referred to some mediator. So we get matters from court. And then those ones we deal with them from a very different perspective. There's also another level whereby you are just disputing with maybe your business partner, or you have issues at your job place whereby you need mediators, or maybe you are sacked unnecessarily and you need a mediator. So we also do all that. But also in the private capacity, you may realize I'm in confrontation with somebody and we are getting into conflicts, but basically we don't want to go to court. We can address these matters with a mediator and we can come up with an agreement. You don't have to go to court. But if you've already gone, there's nothing we can. But you can go and say, I want my matter referred to a mediator. You can even choose, I want my matter to be handled by mediator so and so.
Yeah.
But there are others who have not gone to court, but they want to get a mediator so that you don't go to court. And then that way you can still mediate and come up with an agreement.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Dr. Let me ask you, what would make a mediation situation very difficult?
Yes, there are various things that make mediation very difficult. When the parties maybe want to remain in that same position where they were as they were going to court. This is egos, biases, lack of good faith, all those. But if the parties are willing to sit down and talk, because if they don't want to talk, there's nothing you can do. But if they are willing to talk, one is thinking about the other. Like, let's say it's a family and there's issues of children, just to give an example. If the man is really interested in the issues of these children, and I know court cases as relates to children are given priority because these children have to eat, they have to go to school. But you may find it may take unnecessarily too long, or even another kind of a matter. So, but if you come for mediation, you'll be able to mediate those matters as soon as possible. So basically, we say mediation works better in terms of it's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
And there's no loser. Because let's say you are my brother and we are fighting over 10 acres of land. I don't have to get 5. I don't have to get the 10. But even if I get 4, in mediation we say it's okay. It's a win-win situation. At least you've gotten something and the other party has also let you take something.
Yeah.
So this is why we prefer mediation. Whether private mediation or court-annexed mediation. Yes.
And when it comes to disputes like those ones for land, ethnic, political, are there any high-profile cases that were properly dealt with through mediation that maybe you can mention for us just for context purposes?
Okay, there are many. There are many.
You can, yeah.
Yeah, there are quite a number whereby you find people in those high-profile positions, but they are fighting with their brothers, they are fighting with their sisters, or maybe fighting with their parents. And we have dealt with them in mediation. They have come over. We don't have to meet in areas where they'll be publicized. You can decide where to meet. You can meet in a hotel, and then you sit down and talk. So they have been there, quite a number.
High profile.
Yes, they have been
Mahali
there.
kuna pesa hakukosi. That one I can guarantee.
What do they prefer, mediation or court?
But first of all, like Dr. has said, there's a lot of underlying issues. We call them underlying issues. The egos, the what, and all that. And sometimes you actually find that some underlying issues are not very easily detectable. For example, you might find that between a man and a wife, wamekosana, and the lady decides that I'm going to take this jamaa down, and especially when I've said, mahali kuna pesa hapakosi, noma. So, and when that lady decides that I'm going to take this guy on a rat race, tutaenda litigation, liwe liwalo, it must go down. You only find out that the underlying issue was a very simple thing, that maybe the husband at some point alikata appreciate on a simple basic thing, a very small thing.
What?
Akakata labda alikata akasema sikuli chakula, and from that point haunipendi,
it grew into something.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, the moment you just get to address that small issue, that if you get to identify it, however far it is, even in litigation, yani imefika mahali, like you said, hii imekuwa ngumu, atujui ni nini tutafanya. The moment you just identify that part, and the husband realizes and says, I am sorry, yani hiyo ndo ilinikoseanga 1972.
What?
I am so sorry. Imagine that matter kushes like
Ego
that.
inarudi chini.
Hiyo story yote inaisha, and it dies and it dies. And that is why we say that mediation repairs relationships.
So let me ask you, if you have a situation where two people are in conflict, but you can tell one is using manipulative ways for the case to favor him, how do you go about that?
Manipulative like
Now,
juju.
It happens.
I'm sure it happens. Uliniroga. Mimi.
It really happens.
Aliweka vitu chini ya kitanda.
It really happens.
Are you serious?
Oh, yes.
This is Africa.
It happens. But there are times that you get parties that are people are different. Where some of us are short, others are tall, others are plump. And same applies to our beliefs, depending on where you're brought up from, na nini vitu kama hizo. So, sorry, Daktari, you just take that one. I think you're
manipulative tactics.
A better position.
And also, if you can add on it, would you also mediate or in a situation where you know this husband is physically abusing this woman?
Yes. Address it.
Okay. Yeah, some people may be very manipulative.
True.
It may be the man or it may be the woman. But then what you do in your mediator's opening remarks as you're starting, you come up with ground rules. You understand? Which are supposed to guide the process. And if you realize like the man is becoming manipulative, and we call them power plays, because now he's using his position as a man to put down this lady.
Yeah.
And that's very manipulative. And you find such, if the man does not change, you may be forced to take that matter back to court, because we are allowed to do that. If you find like they're adamant in that one, then you can take the matter back to court for determination, because they didn't want to negotiate. But those ground rules that we make in the mediator's opening remarks when you meet your two parties, we always say no power play, respect for one another. You talk about the win-win situation.
Correct.
And we are here because we really want to end this matter. You talk of mutuality. We are in it together. So it's for us to work on this. So when you talk like that, many people melt down. Even if they came very manipulative, many of them will calm down and they'll want to talk, they'll want to negotiate. But if the man carries that through, that's one of the aspects that can make mediation fail. If the person who is manipulative does not change his ways of operation, then you find mediation may not work. But many of them, and depending on the approach of the mediator, they calm down and they put down those egos, those manipulative attitudes, and you're able to go through. And if you find like maybe we may not get into an agreement today, give it time. Let's think about it. Let's meet next time. Buying time. But also you cannot go on forever, because we have 60 days to do mediation. If you really have a good reason, you can ask the registry to give you an extension, just to buy time to see whether you are going to agree. So we try all kinds of tactics, and you realize most times, very rarely, do those manipulative attitudes remain to the very end.
Is there a process? Is there a mediation process flow on how things are taken?
Yes, there's a process.
And do you also have maybe a line of expertise? Maybe you can take us through the process it takes. So I've come to you, where do we start? And then, is there an area of expertise? Maybe you guys are mediating just for real estate, or you're doing it just for divorce. Is there a difference?
Yes, there are very many areas of mediation. Some of them may be that divorce, or maybe matrimonial property, because when people part, of course, they want to share out their properties. There's the children, there's succession, there's civil matters. Many matters, as you can imagine, all of them go to court. So now, but the process is the same.
Okay.
Because the first day you meet them, when they enter your door, you have to welcome them in a very nice way, so that you make them feel welcome. Remember, in court, they were struggling and battling and writing very naughty affidavits to one another. So you really have to welcome nicely. And the parties, immediately they see like they're being received better here.
They warm up.
They warm up and they'll talk. So now, of course, you introduce yourself, part of the process, and then you also give them an opportunity to express themselves, to introduce themselves. And then, of course, at that point, there are some forms they sign whereby attendance sheets, because as you need to let them sign. And mediation is never forced. So you'll tell them this is a voluntary process. And in case you feel that you don't want to go the mediation way, I cannot keep you here by force. So you talk about those things, and then once they've signed, once they've done the norms that will guide the process, and then you'll give them an opportunity to tell what their struggles are, one at a time. And then you record briefly. And then you give the other party some time to also express what is it that have really brought you for mediation. What has this struggle been all about? And depending on how you use your skills, and how you reflect those feelings, because feelings are very important in mediation. Even in normal life, we always say, it doesn't matter what you told me, but how you made me feel. So as a mediator, you need to tap into those emotions and know how to handle them. Somebody may come as manipulative as possible, like you mentioned, but there's a way you can deal with that person. And then those manipulations will go. So there's that whole process. And once they are able to explain what their journey has been, then you get into the actual negotiations. You can even call one party at a time and then hear them, especially when you get to a deadlock. And that way, through those what we call caucuses, you'll be able to maybe address some of those issues when you are just the two of you. And then you call the other person, because you can't call one and leave the other. They may think you're doing your shoddy deal.
True.
And then you give the other person opportunity, and then they'll also explain. So it's not a one-day process. You can have 5 sessions or 4 sessions, depending. But every time you're talking, because emotions can flare at times.
I can imagine.
So if you find like it's becoming a bit unbearable, you can tell them, can we postpone this to next week?
Yeah.
And then you are sure when they come next week, they are going to come sober and more calm. If it's not so much, you can just say, can we have a 15 minutes break?
Yeah.
Then they go out. And when they come back, they're different. So now, until now, you either get a settlement whereby the parties have been able to agree on all aspects that came up, or you can get a partial agreement whereby we can agree on these 2 or these 3, but this particular 2 is like we need to seek the guidance of the court. Irrespective, the process is the same, irrespective of what kind of matter you are given. And then once you agree, they are not able to agree on all, you write what you have agreed upon and where you need the court's determination. If they don't want to mediate and you just want to go back, you just tell the registry they have not been able to agree, and then that is taken to the judge. So basically that is the process, but you need to keep them as calm as possible.
Sorry to cut you short. If this process was to be taken to the judge, do you also make recommendations?
No, we just say, as mediators, we just say the parties were not able to agree.
Okay, just that.
Just that.
Okay.
Then they'll go explain themselves there. If it was a partial agreement, you just point out the things that you're able to agree on and the things that you're not able to agree on, that you need the judge's decision. If you're able to agree on everything, the judge will just effect it, because now it becomes binding. And any party who defaults can actually be made to do what they promised.
Yeah.
So basically that's the process.
So let me ask you, talked about emotions, but when do you, like, how do you learn to keep your personal emotions away from now the clients themselves? Like when they say something that triggers you and you're like really angry at them, you want to slap them.
As a mediator?
Yeah.
Wow, no.
You can't.
No, you can't. You're supposed to deal with your own issues before you go helping others. You can imagine that glass that we say is half full, is empty, you know that. So you can't pour from an empty cup.
Which
So
brings
you must deal with yourself, deal with those issues, deal with have emotional intelligence, in the sense that, those parties can tell you anything because that's the state they're in, but you're supposed to rise above. So as a mediator, even as a psychologist, you're supposed to have dealt with those issues at a personal level. In fact, I was discussing that with director when we were seated there. You have to deal with yourself first. If you realize you have anger issues, deal with them before you deal with it.
So this can lead to the next question. What are some of the traits or qualities one needs to have
to be a mediator
as you're getting into this mediation expertise? This industry. The young guys listening to you and they're like, "Wow, I want to do that, mom." So what should I have going on in terms of my personality traits, even before I get the papers, before I get before I actually study for this?
Okay. The most basic one, and I like really bringing it down to what we all understand. If people come to you, anytime that there is a dispute, people keep on coming to you to help them resolve those disputes, then that is the first indicator that you have some talent that you can start utilizing and earn from it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's as simple as what happens every day.
Yeah.
Do people come to you? Then from that, number 2, you don't have to be a litigant. Basically, si lazima ukuwe umesoma law for you to become a mediator. It's something that comes from deep inside. It's a passion, it's a drive. Unajua ile watu wanasemanga kwa kanisa ni mwito, kipawa, kipawa. Yeah. So because it's also a game of a lot of patience, because every time you'll see, and not two parties are the same. That you have to note. Where akikuja akilia, yes, they could be fighting, it could be a marital problem or children's matter. But those children's matter, the way party A will solve party B is not the same. Ni tofauti sana. Those scripts are delivered differently. So it's also a lot of a game of a lot of patience. You just have to be. If you're one of those people, TikTok is your thing, utenda too speedy, you are one. you can only be patient for 1 minute.
Hiyo itakuwa ngumu. Kwanza there are so many people I need to send invoices to. I've mediated for too long.
Anataka tu malizana na story.
Hii kwanza hii inaenda kama nimeandikia watu ma receipts.
So if people keep on coming to you, that is bottom line. If people keep on coming to you to help them solve
issues,
and you're patient enough to listen to them and to help them talk through, then that is the first quality of becoming a mediator.
As we wrap up this
Maybe
conversation.
to add on to this.
Yes, please.
You need to have good communication skills.
I agree.
Good communication skills, because you are a communicator and this is your process. You are the process guide. So you have to have proper communication. You also need to be a very good listener. In fact, that runs through, because how will I be able to help you and I've not even listened to you? You also need to be very empathetic. I'm putting myself in your shoes and feeling exactly how you are feeling. You need to be very, very empathetic. He talked of patience. You also need to be a calm person. These people are coming to you when they are not calm. But when you find a calm mediator, they are likely to calm down.
Okay.
So you also need to have some level of wisdom as you're dealing with these people.
Yeah.
Because you will, that with the wisdom, you know how to deal with each of the parties,
Yeah.
and you know when to do what.
Yeah.
So those are also some of the additional skills that I may add.
That's amazing. There's this thing about conflict resolution, in the country. If there's one thing that you could change about how this country deals with conflict resolution, what would this be? This is now from a nationalistic perspective. Some Kenyans are not really happy about how, Gava goes about even dealing with peace in the region, And it also boils down to just individuals. But from a macro perspective, if there's one thing that you would like to see us improve on when it comes to conflict resolution, what would it be?
Okay, there's a lot. Because basically the way we talk to one another.
Okay.
It's very, very demanding.
Oh, interesting.
In terms of how do I deal with you in my political space?
Right.
How do I live with you in my social space? And why should I say something that I would not want to be told the same? Do unto others as you'd want done unto you.
Amazing.
So I would say in the political space, let us learn to talk nicely to one another. Let us try to be our brother's keeper, because that's the only way we can maintain peace. We should remove those abrasive attitudes.
That's the word.
That abrasive, I want to fight you all the time. Why not go for calmness? And when I fight you, I'm also getting aggrieved. And when I do something wrong to you, this will come back to you. I may seem like I've escaped with it today, but it will come back to me tomorrow. I would say, just be nice to one another.
Do you think politicians can adopt a narrative like that? That type of lifestyle where we don't have to talk down to each other. We're all in this together.
It's wrong. It's definitely wrong.
Do you foresee a future where we'll have respect for each other as Kenyans, regardless of our difference in opinion?
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, but we can get there. If I tried my part to try your part, the other person tries their part. We can't get there. But under the situation, we are very selfish, and we want to get everything for ourselves. You don't care what goes to the other person. That is what is eating us. It's difficult, but we can try starting somewhere.
Yeah, we
That's
can
what
always try.
I'd also like to.
You want to add on that? Okay.
Yes. There's nothing wrong in understanding and appreciating the fact that no one is immune to conflict, including yourself.
I agree.
Yeah. So every time that you look at yourself and you say, hata mimi naweza kosewa, ama ninaweza koseana, and it is okay to say I'm sorry and find a solution after it. Kuna ile kitu inakuwaga tu, we just want to throw words at each other. We ulifanya. But does that really give us a solution? Does that mean that tomorrow sita kukosea? So na mimi siwezi kukosea. I mean, it goes both ways. You can offend me, I can offend you. So what do we do in that time of that offense?
Yeah.
That should be the big topic, the big discussion. So that saa ile nimekuja nimelewa na nimekuambia we mpuzi sana uli.
Hujasoma hata.
Hata
Unaniambiaje?
you will know that Liki leo ako things amekula mali yake ako fiti, so tutaongea naye kesho. That is called self-mediation. So you can realize, you learn by yourself to identify where a person is mali penye aiko at that particular time. And in reverse utajua vile huyu mtu ameanza kujiexpress because if you walk to your house today and your wife akwambie tu na unapumuaje wewe from the blue and you know they do,
of course,
unapumuaje? So ukienda hapo hivyo mwambie kweli nafaa kupumuaje. Have you de-escalated the situation or escalated the situation?
Escalation.
Exactly. So for us, what we need to do is, once you have learned mediation and those skills, you learn how to de-escalate matters when self-mediate. So the moment all these politicians...
I like that, self-mediate.
The moment all these mediators, all these politicians learn how to self-mediate before they start attacking, offer solutions to problems. And even in businesses, we will not mention names, but we have seen these businesses, the way they collapse. And sometimes we can even look at a very young person who's...
I know.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Without mentioning.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, if there was an opportunity for them to mediate before kesi zianze kufika kotini,
mambo ingekuwa sawa.
Mambo ingekuwa, at least would have been able to handle it huko.
Correct.
You know, without having that attitude of saying, I'm sorting things out. It's not so. It's, from my perspective, you're not sorting things out. You have to sit me down and explain to me how are you sorting things out. And even when it comes to this very difficult situation, when matters are in court and things like that, then there is an opportunity to also request for what? Mediation.
Wow.
Because it's an opportunity to ask our Cheni, let me sit with the parties, because at the end of the day, we don't want a third party to decide our
fate. Yeah.
It is us. It is between you and me.
Yeah.
So give me a chance to talk to you, and let's come up with an amicable solution.
Nikki, I'm going to have to cut this conversation now. It's been real, very valuable, tons of knowledge. Once again, guys, that was Liki Ndwati. He's the director at Peace and Mediation Africa, also an accredited mediator at the Milimani Law Courts. And on my right, we have the one and only Dr. Alice Gikandi, counseling psychologist and accredited mediator, Peace and Mediation Africa. Thank you so much for your time.
Asante sana. Parting shot.
Yeah, parting shot, very short and sharp.
There are very many opportunities in mediation. Wezi maliza, a lot of money to be made in it.
Ah, nice. Oh, good stuff. Parting shots, Dr.
Yeah, we also offer training.
Yes.
And if you want to train as a mediator, train with us.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Kuna age limit for anybody?
For anybody, let's say for
Let's keep it there. Multi-generational.
Yeah.
I like that.
Peacemakers wako kila mahali at whatever level.
Yeah,
Gen Z says, you can imagine if Gen Zs were mediators, we would not have gotten to where we were. Kinda. It was a good thing that they did, but also in terms of peer mediation,
Yeah.
Peer-to-peer mediation is there's a very big gap that you need.
Yo, my brother, let me tell you, there's too much beef in the hood. You know, we need the young mediators. Please, guys, let's not go there. I like that. Contact information?
www.
Yes.
mediationafrica.org.
Good stuff.
0733 288 082.
Yes.
Daktari?
Okay.
Yeah.
My number is 0722
Yeah.
82
Yeah.
1065.
Good stuff. Short and sharp. Asante sana for your time.
Thank you too.
All right, guys. When we come back, cruising the internet, pia kuna what the facts, tons of stories for you, and it's been very trendy. Kwanza now, I saw in Parliament, guys of Azimio, they went to reclaim their seats.
Wanahitaji mediators hawa.
We'll get into that in a
We are
bit.
available.
Yes.
I'm telling you. It's 18 minutes after 8 right now. TGIF, Glorilla.
94.4 Spice FM.